Hi everybody. Today we're going to start working on the pyramid stairs, and this is an example that I've got going, and we'll take a look at that later in Blender itself. You can see that there is one set of stairs already there, and the other ramp is free and clear. So I wanted to take a look at this image because it shows us very clearly how the stairs are related to the walls that they're between. And you can see just how big the general steps between the layers of the pyramid are versus the size of the stairs, which are comparably really small. But what's important to note here is that those stairs go along the top of those walls, not down deep into them. So we're going to look at three new skills today. The snap tool, Shift Tab is the shortcut for that, and we'll look at how to snap to increments and how to snap to face. And we'll take a quick look at that right now. So I'm going to hop on over into Blender, and this magnet right here is our snap tool. Shift Tab is what toggles it. Okay, and this tells us what we're going to snap to: an increment, a particular vertex, an edge, a face, or whatnot. So if I snap right now, I'm snapping to increment, and I press G to go. As I move, you'll see that it is moving by increments, and I can do that along an axis as well. Okay, so that's really powerful. We're going to take advantage of that. To demonstrate the next piece, I'm going to add another cube, and you'll see that I'm still snapping to increments, and I'm in the middle of an action, so it didn't turn off. So I can press Shift Tab to turn off or on the snapping, and you'll notice that right now that indicator up here is not going away. Can't quite get there. Is not going away when I press Shift Tab, but the behavior is definitely changing. Okay, so I'm going to click on this cube, go into edit mode, tab. I'm going to turn off snapping for a moment, and if I take this edge, and if I wanted to extrude it to this edge right over here, doing so blindly would be really, really hard, even if I know that they're at about the same place, right? I can kind of figure it out. But if I turn on Shift Tab, actually I'm going to press Escape, it's on, and I'm going to go to an edge in this case, or I can do a face. I'll do a face since that's what we'll use in the actual pyramid example today. So I'm going to press G, and notice that once I go and put my mouse over that face, that edge goes right there. And if I say I only want it on the y-axis, it goes right there, and everything's fine. Once I come off it, it starts to try to figure out what I'm trying to do. So I have to put my mouse over the face. One thing that sometimes people try to do is grab it like normal by putting the mouse right over it. And that can make it actually kind of hard to get there because the thing you're dragging is right by it. So what I actually like to do when I'm snapping is put my mouse in sort of blank space near my target, then start it and click on it, choose the y-axis, and I've got that perfectly snapped across. Okay, so that's the snapping tool. We can look at how to snap to increment or how to snap to face. Okay. The next thing that we want to look at also is how to separate two things. So in Blender, we've got now two objects, right? So if I go into object mode, I've got this object and I've got this object. If I want this face here to be something different, I need to separate it so that I can make it a separate object. So in edit mode, I'm going to select face. I'm going to select that. So I've got, that selects all the vertices, the edges, and the face itself in essence. So then I'm going to use P to separate, and I can do it by selection, by material, so that depends on me having added materials, or by loose parts. If they're actually separated by space, then Blender will figure it out for me. In this case, I'm going to use separate by selection. And now if I go in, we'll see that I've got that object, I've got this object, and I have this object. So they are all completely separate. So that's separate. The last thing that I want to look at is the array modifier. Modifiers are incredibly powerful, and we're going to take a look at just one today, but they're going to prevent us from having to create a ton of geometry all on our own. If I go back to that first picture, there we go. Notice how much geometry is in those stairs. There are, I think, 90 stairs there. That would be a lot of geometry to create manually. We're going to use an array modifier to create it ourselves. So here I am in Blender, and I've got this object. And if I look on my properties panel over here, I see this wrench. This wrench is my modifier section. So I can add a modifier, an array modifier. And you notice that automatically this has grown to double the size. It hasn't actually. There are now 2 objects there based on this count, right? So that's pretty nice, but it's not entirely useful until I see that I can do this by offsets. And this is a relative offset. So this has to do with relative to the object's bounding box. That is how big the object is by itself. So if I want to go, let's do this by number, and I need to raise my count to see it. Now it's going 1 on the X and 1 on the Y. And if I make it 1 on the Z as well, then it's going like that. And if I make it, say, 2 on the X, we can see that it expands out, and I can very easily add a ton of geometry. Okay. There are a variety of other options in this one. It's worth playing around with. If I make it a constant amount instead, notice that this is just modifying the relative offset. If I just do that, then it's just going to go that way. Say, gosh, they're all going to be negative 6.03 meters apart. So now we've got the snap tool, separate, and the array modifier. And those are the tools we need in order to build our stairs. So now I'm back into my pyramid, and I think, yep, I'm in solid. So I'm gonna stop. I've been messing with the light, so it looks weird. So I'm gonna turn it off its visibility right here. And we'll take a closer look at the stairs, and we'll see that I'm in edit mode, so I'm gonna change into object mode. Everything right now is one object. That's because I've joined it, so I guess that's one more skill we're gonna get to. And we can see that I have extended the point down to here, and we've built stairs that start sort of 1/10 of a unit is what that actually is, in, and then 1/10 of a unit up, 1/10 of a unit in, knowing that each one of these is 1 stairs up. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stairs to get to the top of one of these layers. Okay, so I'm going to hop on over here, and I'm going to shift into edit mode. And the first thing I want to do is bring that point down to the ground, just like this. And in order to do that, I'm going to use my snapping tool by increment. Okay, so I've turned it on. I'm going to select that far edge, so we can see, and I'm going to say, I'm going to extrude it. And as I move it around, I'm going to say I want to go on the y-axis first. It goes out by 1 once I've kind of gotten there, and then I'm going to move it. Shift X actually is what I want, so that it's not going to go on the X. Out 1, down 1. Okay. E, Y, straight back to there. and now I've created the bounding geometry. Then I need to select those 3 edges to get that face. I'll do that over here as well. And then I'll just run through that one more time to do this side. I'm going to extrude it, out 1, down 1. And notice that with that snapping on the increment, I can do it without telling it which axes I care about. And then I'll do it once more straight back, select those 3 faces, and press F to create the face. Those 3 faces, press F to create the face. Now I've used that snapping on the increment, I'll turn off snapping, in order to bring that wall down to the base. The next thing I want to do is to create the model geometry for my stair. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this point, select points there, right here, and I need to bring it in 0.1. So I'm going to extrude it in 0.1. I'm going to extrude it again up 0.1 and again in 0.1. And that'll draw the line, create the edges that I need for a stair. So I'm on the y-axis going this way. So I'm going to extrude that point on the y-axis by 0.1. Do that with numbers rather than with the mouse. I'm going to extrude it on the z-axis by 0.1. And then I'm going to extrude it again on the y-axis by 0.1. Enter. So now I have the basic geometry for a stair. I'm going to switch to edge select. Select those 2, shift select on that one. And then I want to extrude that, and I want it to go all the way to this face. So I'm going to change my snapping tool to face, and I'm going to turn it on. And again, I'm just going to put my mouse down here in the void, press E to extrude, click on this face, say I only want it on the x-axis, and click, and I've created my stair. And that's what I'm going to use to run an array modifier all the way up to the top. An array modifier works off of objects though, and at this point these are all part of the same object. Not mean to do that, but I can select all these different faces so we know they're all part of the same object. I need to separate these stairs. So I select those 2 faces that make up that stair. I press P to separate by selection. And now I'm working in this object and not this object. Well, I'm working on this object and not my stairs. I can't select those faces. If I press tab to go into object mode, I'm going to select those stairs, and now we're going to use that array modifier. I'm going to add a modifier. Again, we're in the properties panel. I have my stair selected. I've moved from maybe this one, might be where you're at, to the wrench. I'm going to add an array modifier, and you'll see that it grew along the y-axis by 1. Yes, it seems so. And I do want it to do that, but I also want it to go up by 1. There we go, on the z-axis. And then I want it to do that. Zoom out, rotate up so I can kind of see what I'm doing. And I've got a couple ways I can do this. I can just build the stairs like that and go too far. Or I can do a little bit of math here and be like, well, 90 looks like it is just about right. And actually, I might be able to go to, because I've got some overlapping geometry there, so I might be able to go down to 89. Yep, because that looks like that's going to go right up to that face. So I apply that, and now I've got my stairs, and we can see if we kind of run up them. If I'm really being picky, I could fill in this face right here. Not likely that that's ever going to be an issue, but as we can see, my stairs go all the way up. We could go ahead and join this geometry back in. If I select my main pyramid and my stairs, they're 2 separate objects. I can choose my object menu and choose join. We can see that the shortcut key here is Command J. So I'm going to join them together, and it is all one object. And that is how we create our stairs. So again, we've used the snap tool with Shift Tab to toggle, which is useful in the middle of an action, even though the current version of Blender doesn't seem to adjust what that symbol is, whether that symbol is highlighted or not, but it is clearly actually changing. And we used Snap to Increment and Snap to Face. We used the Separate tool to separate the new geometry we created, and then we used the Array modifier to just run those stairs all the way up. One key there is that it's at an angle that works, because since we did it at a steady increment every time, it went up at 45 degrees, so shifting consistently by one unit or one object size in and one object size up every time worked perfectly. If yours isn't quite the same angle going up, it's not such a steady angle, you might have to adjust your array modifier to match. Thanks everybody. Have a great day.